Thanks, Superintendent. Good morning, Oklahoma. Hey, it's good to be here. I'm here with a delegation from Seattle looking for something we lost. There's a bunch of tall people that have been sighted in this general area. I'm also, as Janet said, I'm chair of INACOL, and I went to our session last year. We had this jersey dinner. Do you remember that? And I wore my Sonics jersey, and I was sort of mourning the loss of our basketball team. I had these two really nice teachers from Oklahoma came up. They're wearing their Thunder jersey, and they sat down and they had that gleeful neener kind of look. Said, "We have season tickets. How about you?" So I didn't think that was the most empathetic thing in the world, but it's great today to be in the presence of really extraordinary teachers. It's an honor to follow you on the program, and I just want to start by saying thank you. I know there's a number of superintendents in the audience, and I tried to be one for just long enough to know how hard it is. I remember after my very first year, I took my first day off, and I went with my family to Western Michigan, where I'll be over the weekend. And I sat down in a beach chair, and I pulled out a stack of books that I had wanted to read all year. And the very first one of them was The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. I don't know if anybody remembers the very first line of that. Does anybody remember that? It's one superintendents can appreciate. The first line is, "Life is difficult." I read that and I laughed and I said, man, I don't think he was ever a teacher or principal. But that is so true. I put the book down and played with my kids in the water for a while. And when I came back and I picked the book up, in the first chapter, Peck talks about love. And he defines love as extending yourself to benefit another. And I remember turning the book sideways and writing in big letters, teaching. And I thought to myself, that's the best definition that I've ever read of teaching. One who, for a living, extends themselves to benefit the growth of another human being. And to do that day in and day out is, I believe, the highest calling of the human spirit. It's the best possible way that anybody could spend their day and their careers. So I appreciate each and every one of you and the passion that you bring to your work and the way that you inspire not only your kids and your colleagues, but all of us. So thank you. We're here today to talk about digital learning, and I want to talk about why I'm so enthusiastic about the future. We'll talk a little bit about some improvement levers, why I think digital learning is a big deal, how that will happen, specifically blended learning, and then we'll talk about some implications for those of you that are school leaders. So to start with, I want to acknowledge that you had a tough year. You have a tough job, but it was a particularly difficult last year. And I think from a distance, watching the work that you do, that it's gotten even more difficult in the last few years with the budget cuts. When I look at the work that principals do, I often think about that picture of trying to do extraordinary things, but with hands tied behind the back. That between federal and state and often local policies, that you have high expectations, but often lots of constraints to deal with them, and it feels like the goal of helping all kids succeed is difficult given all the constraints that you have. As I thought about joining you today, I wrote a blog last week about the sort of key levers, 7 key levers that I think school leaders have at their disposal. Even though you do have a lot of constraints, there are a lot of things that that you can do that make a big difference at your school. And at the top of that list, I would put culture. I've had the good fortune to visit thousands of schools around the United States and, in fact, around the world. And I think the number one attribute that sets apart an extraordinary school from an ordinary one is culture. And the interesting, magical thing is that you can get a sense of that in about the first 30 seconds of entering a building. You have a sense of the ethos. You have a pretty quick understanding of the way people treat each other in that space, and that there are a set of expectations for how people will be treated and what kids need to learn at that school. So culture is a big deal, and every single one of you can contribute to that in important ways. Maybe the most important part of culture is a sense of goals, and whether there's a sense of shared aspirations, whether people have a common way of talking about what it is they're trying to accomplish. Clearly, instruction is the heart of the matter. Schools historically have been this sort of place where, for individual practitioners, where teachers did their own thing. But great schools really build a collaborative environment where teachers share best practices and where instruction is really a public act. Everybody in a great school has a chance to be part of the hiring process, and for building leaders, hiring is probably one of the most important things that you do. Number 5, I put materials, and while your district may have more control than you do over your curriculum, there's a lot that you can do to supplement that. And there's some of the exciting things that we'll talk about today are the informal learning opportunities that exist for kids. We're seeing schools that are bringing supplemental, digital supplemental resources in to support their curriculum and to extend their day. Rallying parents and building parent support for the goals that you're trying to achieve at your school is really critical, and often community partners can be part of that. So in short, there's a lot that you can do despite all the constraints that you face. But we are stuck in America in what I think of as an obsolete box. It's teachers in a classroom, and those administrators, like I used to be, say, help every kid achieve at a high level, differentiate your instruction to meet the needs of every student. It's an extraordinarily tough challenge, and I think we can do better. I think here in Oklahoma we can invent new ways to do school that work better for teachers and kids, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about the shift to personal digital learning. So I want to sort of step back and just think about what's happening right now. That every person in this room is going to live through what I think is one of the most important transitions in human history. We've for thousands of years, we've learned together through an oral tradition, through discussing print. And in our lifetimes, we will shift from learning predominantly through print to learning predominantly through digital media. And we'll shift from predominantly age cohorts of kids in classrooms, as we've done for hundreds of years, to individual learning, to kids moving at their own speed, learning in their own way. So the shift from print to digital and the shift from cohort to individuals is, I think, an extraordinarily important shift.